Trump turned the tables after Putin tried to act as Iran's guarantor in a billion-dollar nuclear deal and turned Moscow's move into an absurd proof of Tehran's weakness. This Friday, June 5, 2026, the crisis took on new weight because Russia is trying to sell protection, Iran is trying to buy time, and Washington is keeping the pressure on the point that really matters. The Iranian regime cannot hide uranium, evade inspections, and still pose as a victim before the world. The $25 billion agreement between Iran and Russia for new nuclear plants did not fall on deaf ears. It came up in the middle of a crisis in which the International Atomic Energy Agency keeps demanding explanations about enriched material, while Trump demands a simple choice from Tehran. What was Putin trying to hide? Why did Iran rush to Moscow? How did Trump turn that pressure against them? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward, no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. The movement began when Iran and Russia strengthened their nuclear cooperation through Rosatom, the Russian state-owned company in the sector, in a project announced to build 4 nuclear power plants on Iranian territory. The official version talks about civilian energy, electricity generation, and Iran's internal needs. But the political moment changes everything. Tehran is not negotiating like a calm nation. The regime is surrounded by international pressure, regional war, sanctions, suspicions about uranium stockpiles, and the American demand to hand over sensitive material. That's when the nuclear pact stops seeming like just an energy project and starts sounding like Putin's attempt to give diplomatic cover to his aquatic ally. Trump didn't respond as if he had surrendered. The White House kept the focus of the crisis in the same place. The Iranian nuclear program needs to be dismantled, verified, and controlled. Iran tries to say it wants energy. Putin tries to say he trusts Tehran. But the pressing question is simple. If everything is peaceful, why does the International Atomic Energy Agency still demand access, the whereabouts, and an explanation for the enriched material? Moscow gets into trouble. Because it knows that an isolated Iran may be forced to give in sooner. Putin tries to hold on to influence in the Middle East, protect billion-dollar contracts, keep Russia relevant, and use the nuclear standoff as a geopolitical bargaining chip against Washington. But by doing this, he also takes on part of the cost. If Iran hides material, the shadow falls on Moscow. If Iran backs down, Putin loses. If Iran accepts inspections, Trump wins on the main point. Trump keeps the door to negotiation open because this forces the enemy to explain themselves. That's the difference between political theater and control. The State Department's warning to Americans abroad, especially in the Middle East, reinforces that Washington is not treating this crisis as empty talk. The American government advised caution, attention to alerts from embassies and consulates, and care regarding possible threats against interests linked to the United States. That doesn't look like a president who surrendered. It fits with a White House that knows any move by Iran, allied militias, or groups sympathetic to the regime could lead to a new escalation. The International Atomic Energy Agency also put direct pressure on Tehran. The agency once again expressed concern about the lack of access to affected sites and the loss of control over information related to stocks of low and highly enriched uranium. The most sensitive issue involves uranium enriched up to 60%, a level close to the technical threshold for military use if further pursued. The attempt to block Trump in Washington has also become part of the crisis. The House of Representatives approved a resolution to limit new military actions against Iran with 215 votes to 208. 4 Republicans joined the Democrats. The left called this a break on war, but the strategic interpretation is different. When Congress tries to tie the president's hands in the middle of negotiations, the signal that reaches Tehran is dangerous. Wait, resist, and hope that Washington divides its own strength. Marco Rubio warned exactly about this when he said that the Iranians might think the government's hands would be tied. That's why Trump needs to maintain authority, pressure, and room to maneuver. Putin is trying to do in Iran the same thing Russia has been doing in other regions, using civilian nuclear energy as a tool of influence. Moscow has also advanced a nuclear project in Uzbekistan with Russian technology, Russian financing, and talk of a strategic partnership. The difference is that in the Iranian case, there is an explosive layer. The regime is already under suspicion, is already facing pressure from the International Atomic Energy Agency, and is already using the regional crisis as a political shield. That's why the pact with Putin doesn't clear Iran. It only shows who is willing to protect it. The history of the 2015 nuclear agreement helps to understand why Trump acts this way. The old diplomacy promised to control the Iranian regime with concessions, long deadlines, and trust in fragile commitments. Trump broke with this logic because he saw that Tehran used negotiation to buy time, ease pressure, and keep room to advance. Now the same discussion returns with a different face. Instead of Obama and Europe offering relief, it's Putin offering cover. The method changes, but the risk is the same, letting Iran turn diplomatic talks into a shield for its nuclear program. Israel is also part of this calculation because it lives with the Iranian threat up close. The Israeli government has made the destruction of Iran's nuclear capability one of the central objectives of its military campaign. This shows that the crisis is not an abstract dispute between diplomats. It's a dispute about survival, regional influence, and the power of intimidation. Iran finances, inspires, and protects allied groups that operate on different fronts in the Middle East. When that same regime tries to expand nuclear cooperation with Moscow, the question stops being technical and becomes political. Who benefits if Tehran comes out stronger? Comparing with other nations helps clarify the situation. When an allied nation seeks civilian nuclear technology under clear rules, inspection, and transparent alignment, the risk is controlled. When Iran does this in the midst of war, sanctions, lack of full access for the nuclear agency, and getting closer to Putin, the scenario changes. It's not the plant itself that's frightening, it's the regime behind it, the timing chosen, the backer involved, and the history of concealment. Trump turned the tables because he refused the left's framework. The Russia-Iran deal proves that Tehran needed Moscow to try to breathe. It proves that Putin wants to save his influence. It proves that the pressure from the United States shook the regime's structure. If Iran were comfortable, it wouldn't need to rush into a biblical nuclear deal, becoming a millionaire in the middle of a crisis. I'm Milson Alves, global and internationalist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.